Good morning, everyone. I'm going to
Morning.
call the Council and Committee budget meeting back to order. And I will turn it back over to our treasurer. We are on page 31 of 55, also known as page 29, Planning and Development.
Okay. So this is the 2022 Planning and Development budget. Salary slightly over budgeted of 2021 for 2021 actual. So 75 budget, 77,156 actual. So there are 2 staff members within this department. And both of those members have their salaries split. So one is shared with general admin and planning, and the other is shared with the building department and planning. And those, so that's where those salaries come from. So we've done a slight increase based on the actual amount for salaries, just to make sure we capture that. Shoreline road allowance expenses, again, slightly higher, but then we do recapture those costs. So they're applied back to the applicants. Consultants fees, we did think, we budgeted 69 and only spent actual. Again, these are, they go back and forth with the revenue, so they sort of cancel each other out. So I just decreased it down to 30. I guess it depends on the technical side of the applications and what's related. But again, those consultants fees are typically charged back to the applicant. Materials and supplies is just toners and some sort of printing items that they may require in order to do the work in that department. So if there are any questions from council members on the operating of the planning and development budget.
Okay, any questions on this budget?
Nope.
I'm not seeing any, so I guess we would continue then, Amanda.
Okay, so we're staying on page 31 of 55, and that brings us to the economic development budget. Salaries for 2021, budgeted 31, actual 22,596. Slightly lower. We did have a vacancy within that position for a couple of months, and so that's why you see the dip. So did do a slight increase in 2022 based on the 2021 budget, because we do have a full-time staff member within that department now. And that position, the salaries are split between economic development and parks salaries. So let's just go to some of the informational topics here. So road sign fees, these are the sign fees that we receive from MTO that we have to pay for annually. Slightly higher in 2021 actuals because they were we get billed or invoiced from MTO for a period of time, and the invoices should have been split into prepaid expenses, so that the expenditure sits for future years, sits in that prepaid expense and doesn't hit the financial statements for the current year, and then we apply it in those years as the years come by. So we will have to do a GL, a journal entry to adjust that. So that will come down once we get into the final audited numbers. So we are more in line with the 2,500. Website expenses, so we have increased it to 2,650 because there are, again, some forms that we would like to see produced, and they are currently being worked on for different events and activities or recreational activities that that residents would submit forms for. We're trying to transition to website forms that automatically just email to the parties that are directly involved. So we have increased it a little bit higher, and every year we will be budgeting for some website expenses just to make sure that the website works for us. Okay, let's go down here. Advertising and promotion expense. So that's just different recreational and economic development advertisements that we might do it throughout the year. Highway banner expense. We have recognized we need to purchase a new banner for, I believe it was for the Santa Claus parade and sort of the Christmas time area. So we have slightly increased that. New initiatives are, we do budget for a new initiatives account so that we can try and come up with some different ideas. And then if those ideas stick, then we will transition them into permanent ideas and come out of that. They will no longer be expensed out of new initiatives, and we'll try and, if they are something that we want to continue, then we'll create event lines for those items. The grant expense line is if we receive a grant throughout the year. Sometimes little recreational or economic development grants pop up throughout the year. We apply for them and then we get them. So we don't typically budget for it because those are some of those one-offs that you never know if we're going to get it. So the grant, we do have some actuals in 2021, but then it's offset in the revenues as we receive the grant. So I believe this was part of the participation grant. Municipal beautification expense. This is, we do give a budget to the Horticultural Society. They do a wonderful job as to beautify our communities and plant flowers in the various pots. So we have a little bit extra for some new planters throughout the municipality. And then again, the Horticultural Society has their budget within that. Okay, materials and supplies. We didn't spend anything in 2021, but we just kept that small amount in there in case they may need something that was unforeseen or unexpected. Area space sign refurbish. So we did budget in 2021. We didn't spend anything. So we are just looking at sort of making our signs within the community more cohesive and make them all match up. So we thought that we would start with 1,000 this year, see how far that can get us, and make sure that all the signage sort of matches and looks right, so that when you come into the community and you see a sign, you know, it sort of stands out, you know where you are based on what the signs look like. Again, we continue to budget for the Santa Claus parade, a tree of lights, $850. Again, last year it was, we did not have a more formal event that we typically do downtown. This $850 is what we would usually spend on the horse-drawn carriage rides, and maybe a little like hot chocolates or a little bit of things on the side at the railway station. So hopefully that will go on this year. The heritage plaques, walking museum maps, we budgeted 800 last year. Nothing was spent. The committee did not request anything. Again, I think everybody is sort of just trying to catch up from the past 2 years. So we did budget this year, but this is for the Pebble Mosaic plaque for this year, not for those walking museum maps that you see throughout the town, because the committee that takes care of those, they did not spend anything last year and they did not request anything. So we will budget this year for the Pebble Mosaic. And then, you know, as we go on, maybe in 2023, if they are back up and running and taking care of those, we'll look into that. Capital expenditure, no capital expenditure this year for economic development. We did spend $10,000 last year. That was our Valley Manor commitment, our 3-year commitment. So we have retired that commitment. We've completed it, fulfilled the request, and we are moving on from that, and no capital reserve. Are there any questions from the council members on the operating budget of economic development?
No.
Okay, Councillor Poplinsky.
Thanks, Mary Love. Amanda, I'm just wondering,
are we putting enough money into we have a new person in the recreation and economic development. I'm looking at the staff training and the convention training courses and so on.
Mhm.
If we don't have enough and there's something that we should be doing, can we take it from another source? Because we don't want to, cut it short here, especially this is a very important position, one that, you know what I'm saying? So
this was the request that she made.
Okay.
We did slightly increase it in general admin.
Okay.
So I think we're okay for this year. And the idea was that just she would like to get a feel of the department and see what's coming along, as this will be her first full year.
Okay.
And then we'll reassess for the 2023 budget.
Thank you.
Amanda, should anything come up, though, we do have an economic development reserve that we could draw from,
Yes.
right? Yes,
Yes,
so
we do.
there are funds there if something special comes up.
yeah.
As things are reopening, and we're bound to see more opportunities come about. So we do have that reserve, which is reassuring to know.
Yes.
Are there any other questions on the economic development budget? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Then let's move on, Amanda.
Okay, so that brings us to page 32 of 55 of your agenda package, the emergency preparedness budget. So emergency preparedness salaries, budgeted 23, spent only actual of 29.85. So this salaries line, we'd budgeted 23 because of COVID. So the idea was that we would be putting, if we had to hire any additional staff, or we really weren't sure of what was going to happen in 2021. So we brought this back down to 2,000 of where it typically is for the salaries. And those are the lines for when the emergency, the CEMC and the alternate do have to attend some training or whatnot. So we just move some of their salaries into this line. We had this miscellaneous COVID expense, so we budgeted 16, 6,200 was directed there. Public education and awareness, that's more like advertisements, or if they have to buy little knickknacks for events or whatnot for the schools and for different activities that take place. Materials and supplies, this is our annual generator maintenance fund or budget. We want to make sure that we continue with the maintenance annually on our generators, so very important. Capital expenditure, so we budgeted 71, spent 31,897. So we can look at that sheet, but I believe those were for the generators, purchasing of the generators. And then capital reserves, again, we continued with the 12,500 in the 2022 budget year. So I do want to say that the Safe Restart monies that we did receive from the province to offset any additional expenses, lost revenues, wages, has been used up in 2021. So anything that was left in that account will be redirected to our revenue lines to offset lost rentals from the PJY and to offset these costs here that we see within this COVID expense line and within the salaries lines here. Okay. Oh, right. So we had budgeted 71 for the generator repairs, and as it turned out, the generators, we went a different route, and it did not come to the $71,000. We took a different avenue, and that's why we're at 31,897 for 2021. Are there any questions from the council members on the emergency preparedness budget?
No.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Poplinski.
Thanks, Mary Love. Amanda, dealing with the emergency preparedness miscellaneous expense, the COVID-19, and so that fund has been depleted. Is that correct in understanding that?
Yes. So we received funds like every couple of, every now and then the province would announce, oh, we're going to give you more safe, they called it safe restart.
Yeah.
So we're
Was
gonna
there
give you
any,
more money.
was there any suggestion that if this reoccurs, as we have been locked down and come back with various stages of this COVID thing, and was there any suggestion that there would be more money available like we have to apply, or we're still in a period of a lot of uncertainty.
So it all started in 2020, where the the associations and the municipalities lobbied the government, and they set up an initial fund for us. So we received about 178,000 in 2020. So a majority of those funds were used up in 2020, and we applied them to wages and lost revenues for the rentals. We also applied it to lost what is it called? Arrears forgiveness. So we allowed taxes and water penalties to be sort of delayed. We didn't apply anything for the first couple of months beginning in the pandemic of 2020. So we applied those funds there. And then at the beginning of 2021, again, there was more sort of uproar from the municipalities and from the associations asking for more money. So the government said, okay, this, we'll give you another $39,000 and that's all you're getting. And it was made sort of clear to us that that would be it. There hasn't been any more discussions. So I think we're seeing the end of it for now anyways.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on emergency preparedness?
No.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll proceed then.
Okay. Sorry. So page 33 of 55 brings us to Parks and Recreation General Administration budget. So the salaries line is again part of the Recreation Community Development Coordinator's position. And then if we have any students in the summertime to help with the administration for Parks and Rec, we do revert some of those salaries to this line as well to offset some costs. So slight increase over 2021 budget. Again, actuals are lower than budget because of the position, there was no one in that position for a period of time. Insurance, significant increase in insurance for parks. Parks and Rec seems to be one of those where general liability is seeing a rise in the claims or the concerns. And so we had to increase that this year. Convention and seminar training costs. So that's typically the the ORFA seminar, the recreational and facilities convention or seminar that takes place in the summer. So we budgeted again for it with the hopes that we will be able to attend that. Okay, materials and supplies is just a small budgeted amount for office supplies and whatever might be needed, extra papers for recreational activities and stuff. $1,000 for MV promotional material. We budgeted last year, we did not spend it. We decided to keep it in again this year, so that would be sort of some advertising pieces like pens or whatnot that we can sort of advertise the municipality with, pins, pens, whatever we might need. We do have a line in capital expenditure, so we'll go to that in a minute. And we just continued with the $6,000 application to the capital reserve for our playground planning. So before we go to the capital sheet, are there any questions on the operating? from council.
Okay, any questions on this one? Councillor Poplinski.
Are we, I'm not sure, are we dealing with the events down below, or are we just dealing with the top part of this page?
Just the top part, because we're going to go to the capital for Parks and
Okay,
Recreation, and then
okay,
we'll come
so-
back to the events.
Okay, so the playground is in the bottom, the other portion then, in the capital.
Yeah,
Oh.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So Amanda, I don't see any other questions on the operating, so could we go to the capital and maybe,
Okay.
yes.
So let me just zoom here.
Okay,
All right, so we have budgeted 5,000 for signage throughout the municipality, and that's we have signage that's like you know, outside of the boundaries of the municipality. So we need to assess that, and there might be some work that needs to be done, some brushing and some painting and some upkeep. So we've put a small amount in there. Again, we need to find a more cohesive, uniform structure to our signage so that when you see our signs, you know it's Madawaska Valley. Okay, so we did not plan for a parks, a playground structure, because everybody had an idea of what they wanted the different playgrounds to look like. We've had drainage issues at Lakeshore Park. We've also had drainage issues at the Cumberland Park. I apologize to forget the name of it, where the play structures are. So the idea was that we would request a master design or a layout plan. So what this is, it's a landscaping design where we tell them what we think we would like. They look at the area and try and map everything out for us. We did budgeted 40. We think it's going to be more around 20 area. So the monies to offset this are coming from reserves. So whatever is not spent will just go back to reserves. So we feel that this is the best way to start, is to get a design so that everybody has their say and everybody has an idea of what these parks are going to look like. And then we know what our path forward is. We can map it out financially. So, you know, you can say we'll do drainage and, you know, different sand or plants or, you know, horticultural type of layout in the first year. The second year, we'll, you know, do other things, whatever it might be. And then we can more accurately budget for that rather than just spending 150,000 or 200,000 on some playground structures, just putting them down somewhere. You know, we have a lot of open space at Lakeshore Park here in Barry's Bay. But we want to make sure that that the park looks nice for the future, and we get the right design and the right layout. So we're hopeful that council is supportive of this idea. And that is the plan for this capital parks budget. Any questions from council?
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Councillor Wilmer.
I just wanted to say that, no, I agree with this, and Hannah and I did meet on this several times, and I think even at our marketing committee, we sort of looked at Lakeshore Park, and in the past things have been done sort of willy-nilly. We put something here, we put another thing here, but there's no overall design for the whole area, and there's a lot of area. And there are a lot of items in that park, and not all are necessarily in the right location, or perhaps could be in better locations. You will know we've discussed ideas such as gazebos and all sorts of things. And there are many, many different types of activities that can happen there. So I think doing the master design will give us a good layout of the whole area and show us where it's best to locate each structure and indeed what we want in that park. So I agree with this. The other thing, and Amanda mentioned it, is we really do have significant drainage problems that are right in the playground structure or the present playground structure area. And every time we get a thunderstorm in the summer, the whole area washes out. So we need to look at that, and that will all be part of the master design layout plan. So I think it's a really good way of going before we just spend 150,000 and stick a play structure up. We really want to look at the whole area and make sure we do it right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Raplinsky.
Thanks, Mary Love. I agree with Councillor Wilmer on this exactly. It's a real jewel that we have here, and many other townships and towns would love to have a situation where they can have a park on a beautiful piece of water like we've got. And I think it is important to do it right. I recognize all the issues that we have to deal with, but I think having a plan is a good idea, and the input from the community to make it work. And I think what we need to do is to have some sort of framework in place, a plan to move ahead, as opposed to wanting to do something, but you know, what is our plan moving forward? And that's why I think the committee that Councillor Wilmer that you mentioned has been very constructive in that sense, and I would like to see that committee continue and to be able to continue to work on something like this. So I think we need to have something, you know, some sense of where it's going, and the sooner the better. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on that? Councillor Bromwich, is your hand up?
No, I just on the top of my computer. Here.
Oh, okay.
But,
no, that's fine. I was trying to see if it was off to the side.
yeah, I'm just going to say I'd agree with this 100% too. What we've always had kind of a lot of thought going into the park. We've had ideas coming out from everybody, and this is a real good idea, is to consolidate all the ideas into a plan and then go ahead with it, because we do have a jewel down there, and we should spruce it up a bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Amanda, so you're suggesting that it may not take 40,000, but we
That's
do
correct.
have another park that also has a drainage issue that should be looked at.
Yes.
I'd really like to see, since we're going to be you know, RFPing for someone to do this work for us. Once we have the experts hired, it would be nice to have them look at that other park as well and ensure that we know what to do to fix the drainage issue and to utilize that space as best as possible.
Yes. And
It is a much smaller space.
Yeah. And so, you know, maybe once the RFP is out and we have these people come down and look at Lakeshore Park, maybe we can show them the other park out in Cumberland, and they could just give us some quick ideas off the top of their head. Or if they say, you know, no, you need more of a design plan or whatever, we can address it at that time. But definitely, yes, there are drainage issues at both parks that need to be addressed.
Okay. Apparently, Hannah, I'm so sorry. You have your hand up, but I can only see the strip down the side and it's full of council. So Hannah, did you want to comment on that? Please go ahead.
No problem. No, I just want to reiterate, like, I'm really excited that people are interested in this plan. I think it's really important to have a clear direction for such a huge, beautiful piece of property. And Mayflower Park in Cumberland is also on our minds. There are plans for brushing, addressing the drainage issue with those lovely stairs, as well as looking at accessibility and stuff there too. So we definitely have a bit of a to-do list there as well. But just as far as Lakeshore goes, it'll be nice to see all the things we want planned out by a professional. So.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. In regards to the ad hoc committee, this would extend beyond what they were tasked with. I think they need to report back to us, and then council can decide if we want to set up another committee to address specifically this park. But let's get a report back on the work that they've been doing, because some of us are in the dark and we would like to know all the efforts that have gone into the marketing, the proposal for marketing for our community. So let's not extend anything at this point and just see where this is going to go. Perhaps once we've hired the person who's going to do the plan, or the company that will do the plan, they will have some ideas on how we will they'll obviously have ideas on how we'll engage the public and ensure that we get a plan for Lakeshore Park that addresses what our community needs. Okay, any other comments on the plan for the park?
Nope.
Okay, I'm not seeing any. Wave at me or say something if I miss you, because like I say, I can't see everybody, and who I can see sometimes changes based on who's speaking. All right, Amanda, please continue then.
Okay, so sticking with page 33 of 55, just moving down the sheet, is the Parks and Recreation Mad Valley Programs and Events budget. So we have our Canada Day expense this year. Budgeted 17, actual was 11 for 2021. Majority of it offset by Heritage Canada grants for the fireworks. Hannah does have bigger plans for 2022, budgeted 26,500. We've also budgeted for the community Christmas party for 2022, and hopefully we'll be able to proceed with that. Again, the expense will be offset by revenues. Then we have the swim program salaries, budgeted 16. The actual was 20 for 2021, so we just increased that slightly to actuals for 2022. Again, we have to wait and see, but hopefully, and we have to make sure that we get all the right staff. And then again, materials and supplies for the swim program, we just increased it slightly by 2,500. We do need to purchase some new items for the life-saving, from the Life-Saving Society for this program to run. So if actually, I would like to pass it over to Hannah. And if you just want to explain what your idea for Canada Day was for this budget for council, please.
Sure. I'll note that it's a large number, and we do have a grant in for, hopefully we've applied for $20,294. So obviously that would cover the majority of that, and then plans would be significantly scaled down if we didn't get that grant money. I do also want to note that the Celebrate Canada grant included expenses for a celebration for National Indigenous Peoples Day in June. So that budget also includes that event. That's why it is also a little bit.
Just wondering if I could have her speak up, because I didn't hear that last bit.
Okay, Hannah, could you repeat? Just lean a little closer to your mic, please.
Sorry, yeah, just that the event, the budget of the 26,500 includes for two events. So a National Indigenous Peoples Day event in June, as well as a Canada Day event on July 1st.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any questions from council? Councillor Wilmer.
I was just wondering, because this is now two events, and I expect National Indigenous Day will become a regular celebration. I'm just wondering, in the future, perhaps we should be dividing this into two budget lines, just to distinguish between the two. I think that might be a good idea. I mean, for this year, it doesn't really matter, but as I said, I expect that both will be annual events, and we may want to look at that in the future.
Okay, Amanda, and can we do that?
We can do that.
Okay. Is there separate funding for the Indigenous event day?
No, it was all applied for together under the Celebrate Canada grant.
Okay.
Mhm.
So for the moment, it kind of makes sense if they're coming out of both. They're both coming out of the same grant. That might be why they're in the same line item. But yeah, I can understand what you're asking, Councillor Wilmer. Any other questions on this, Councillor Poplinski?
Thanks, Mary Love. My question, in other years, Hannah, we've always, Canada Day is, the celebration is usually involves the entire township, and there's money set aside, of course, for Wilno and Cumberland and Barry's Bay. Is that the case this year?
Absolutely. Yeah, we reached out to various groups. We didn't hear back from everybody, but we did still budget the $1,000 that had been in the past for both Wilno and Cumberland. If they don't need it, we can kind of absorb it or just not spend it. So, but it is there for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions on the events budget? Okay, I don't see any. So Amanda, let's move forward.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Poplinski.
Yeah, I thought you were going down the list, and the next on the list was the community Christmas party. And it'd be really nice to see that back in place again this year. I'm just wondering, I went through the list in the income, and I didn't see where there was a line with an income for that particular event. Maybe you could direct me to that?
Amanda, could you
Let me
direct
just
us to that?
find it. We do have it. Let me just look. Okay. Okay. 6,000. I'd just like to say that Canada Day is on a Friday. So I would suspect if everything is open up, I think Canada Day this year will be quite significant in the community. So we do need to be prepared for that.
I'll also,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I did also want to say that in discussions with neighboring municipalities, I don't know if there's too much planning going on just with the unknowns with COVID. So we also might have a lot of neighbors joining us too if we do something.
The income is on page 10 of 55. It's the first line. It's
Yes.
15,000. So it's a revenue neutral event.
Yes, so it is in there,
Okay.
Councillor Poplinski.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I just didn't see it. So
Okay, any further
Thank you.
questions on these budgets for the events? Okay, I'm not,
my
oh,
own-
Councillor Poplinski.
yes, I do. Regarding the swim program, I know there was a lot of uncertainty last year, and I know they had something, and I noticed the actual was $4,000 more than what we had budgeted. Did we end up with more kids at the end, type of thing? I know there was a lot of uncertainty when we were doing the budget. Hannah, would you have any information on that? Or I know you weren't here at the time, so what I'm wondering, and so how do we actually budget in anticipation of it happening again? You know, like there's some, I'm sure some
Okay.
questions as to,
So
are we adding enough money for that?
Okay, can
so-
I direct it to Amanda because she would have
Sure.
that info.
So
Yeah, whoever.
I just put into based on what the actuals were. I think maybe it might be a good idea for an upcoming committee meeting that we have a breakdown of the swim program, what the registrations were and what the costs were, if that might be more
Yeah.
helpful to Councillor Poplinski.
I can
Yeah,
offer.
it's a great program, and I want to make sure that it is funded and
Okay,
we don't turn kids away, and you know, because everybody's anxious to get out and do things
Okay.
again, and I just raise it for that issue because of that reason, you know.
Mhm.
okay, so Hannah, did you want to say something? Was it
Just
Hannah?
that, yeah, off the top of my head, I don't have like financials from last year, but I will say that in 2019, we had 126 participants. We didn't have the program in 2020. And then last year we had 149. So we did grow substantially. Hopefully we will again this year. So we'll see.
Okay, and
Thank-
Sue, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add, if you recall, because of the COVID issue, we had decided not to increase the rate either for private lessons, and there were a few more private lessons, as well as we didn't want to burden any of the residents or participants with an additional cost. And we did budget 9,500 for revenue, and we did bring in 10,338. So we did receive more revenue than was anticipated. So
Right,
Thank
so
you.
we do recognize this program isn't revenue neutral, but we accept that that's an investment we make in the children of our
Right.
community to ensure that they can swim.
Mhm.
Councillor Wilmer.
Actually, Sue just said what I was going to. I was just going to
Okay.
mention that the revenue was budgeted. We were $800 over, up in revenue over what was budgeted, and we're only asking for a $250 increase over the actuals on last year. So
Mhm.
on expenses. So I think it does show it's growing, and I know Hannah has some other ideas for it, but I think it would be good to bring the figures and the breakdowns back to a meeting in the future so we can all see.
Okay, so Sue, if you could make sure that happens, that we get a breakdown of last year's swim program.
And if
And
I may add,
go ahead.
Mayor, if I may add, Mayor Love as well, there is an adjustment to the rates coming to the fees and charges as well. There's a slight increase, I believe, Hannah, correct?
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. So there is not going to be,
There's
we're
not,
doing
okay.
it in short, we're doing a different structure. We're going to have 3 sessions. So there isn't necessarily a raise in the group lessons, but there will be in the private lessons, just because we do want to encourage those group lessons.
Okay, so
you.
perhaps this could be reported to council at our counseling committee meeting, either the next one or the one after. If we could get that information, just so we're aware of what's proposed this year and how it went last year, a little more detail. Is that something that could happen, Sue? Okay, thank you.
Yes, so noted.
Okay, I see nodding. Council, we're good with that? All right. Okay, where are we then? Is there anything further on the events budgets? Okay, I don't see anything. Let's move forward, Amanda.
Okay, so that brings us, we're going to skip page 34 of 55 because we've already spoken about that. So we're going straight to 35 of 55, which is the Paul J. Akbuski Community Center budget. Okay, salaries line. So we budgeted 148, actual 181, 125. Slightly higher. We did have we had more staff due to COVID. We also had more staff. We have 3 full-time employees currently reporting to the Paul J. Akbuski Community Center. In the summertime, those salaries will get shared, but as of fall of 2021, those salaries went to the Paul J. Akbuski Community Center. We put in the same for the budget for 2021 because I do believe those amounts will start going down. We had to have increased part-time staff in the beginning of the winter of 2021 for as a result of COVID, more cleaning staff. So there was that's the reason why those amounts are a little bit higher there. Okay, so let's move on down the line. So we have $3,000 in staff training, just carried from 2021 the same. Actual was $291.84, but the staff members have requested additional training, and therefore we felt it was important to keep that amount in there so that they can take some training this year to upgrade their skills. Okay, so telephone, internet, Wi-Fi, we now have internet and Wi-Fi working well there. So we kept that at 4,000 and it's working well there. Let's just move along here. Okay, miscellaneous. So we had items in the miscellaneous expense line, miscellaneous building expense line. And so what I did was I amalgamated those lines into this building maintenance line. For whatever reason, somehow, not sure why we have all of these 3 lines. So I've retired these 2 GL lines so that nobody can post to them anymore and just put them together. So these are expenses that occurred throughout the year. We did replace 2 fire rated doors that were required as a result of, safety hazards. So that increase there. And then we just kept this at 40,000 for the year so that they continue to do minor health and safety upgrades throughout the facility and make sure that the facility operates properly. Building hydro, we budgeted 95, spent 59. So we just kept it at 85 for this year because, again, we know that the ice plant was not running the way it had been in previous years. And hopefully, once construction's all complete, we'll be up and running and back to normal and everything will be great. So we project that 85 will be a safe amount for us. Water and wastewater, budgeted 16, only came in at 8,800 for 2021. So again, because there weren't a lot of events, a lot of use within the facility, hopefully by the fall and winter of this year, we'll see that facility used back to a normal level that we would typically see. Ball field maintenance, we did receive a very nice donation of $1,000 from the one of the ball groups, so we're grateful for that and it will help offset some maintenance costs with the bleachers. So we do have a $5,000 ball field maintenance to continue on. It will not fix everything there, but it's a start to help us get things addressed. Liquor and beer purchases, this is just for events, weddings, or any other special events that we have. So we have the expenditure and then we have receipts on the revenue line side. Same with mix and other bar purchases. So we do have an expense and then the revenues come in out the other line. Bar security and wages. So that's just the staff that we hire if we have a wedding or an alcohol event. We have those staff members there. 2021 equipment purchase other expense. So we budgeted 4,000, spent 3,900 for tables and chairs. So we have some new stuff there, and we were able to sell some surplus tables that were there to offset these costs. Zamboni roof repair, budgeted 49, spent 5,000. So that's pretty good. Screen, we budgeted 2, we did not spend anything. I believe the plan is that we would eventually purchase a screen, but right now with the future construction projects, we're not sure if this is actually necessary this year, depending on what's going to be happening again. Rink board maintenance, budgeted 13, spent 0, but that's because that item went into one of those building maintenance accounts. So I did not budget this year and just again put that in towards there. So before we move on to the large capital expenditure and capital reserves, are there any questions from council on the operating of the Paul J. Akabuski Community Center?
Okay, any questions from council?
Nope.
I don't see any. Amanda?
Councillor Poplinski's hand is up, Mayor Love.
Oh, okay. Well, it wasn't up when I looked. Sorry. I just before I go to you, Councillor, I just wanted to let's see. What was my question? I've lost it. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Poplinski. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Thanks, Mayor Love. My question to Amanda. Amanda, you mentioned that the salaries were up significantly because of the requirement to hire more staff because of COVID. I assume that we were able to use some of that grant from the COVID to offset those costs?
So whatever was the balance in the in that Safe Restart funds, I just applied it into Ontario specific grants into that line item on the revenue side. So yes.
So there was some offsetting.
Yes, there was.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Wilmer's hands up.
Just on that line too, I'm not questioning anything, but I'm just wondering if 148 is enough, considering that the first 3 months of this year, we did have to hire extra staff to deal with COVID, and especially with the testing and showing codes and things at the door. I'm wondering if that has been accounted for in the 148 figure, because we did have 3 months basically where we were still in the COVID situation.
So I also suspect within this line, the actuals of 2021, that with new staff, that they may not have been coding their timesheets appropriately. So we have a lot of part-time staff that will work in various departments. But when we set up their payroll account in our financial system, if it is our understanding that, you know, they're hired for the Paul J. Akabuski Community Center, we set it up so that it automatically expenses to these certain accounts. And then it's their job and the supervisor's jobs to make sure that they redirect those hours to the appropriate departments. So it's very high. That's a lot of money. So I do suspect that there may have been times where staff did not appropriately code their timesheets to move them into the parks areas when they should have been. So I do feel that the $148,000 is a reasonable amount that will cover our full-time staff and then the part-time staff from this first quarter of the fiscal year.
Mayor Love?
Okay, yeah, okay, 1 second. Councillor Wilmer's hand is up again.
Yeah, I have one very minor one, and it sort of intrigues me because anytime I've operated a bar, it's usually different than this, and that's the lines where we have the liquor and beer purchases of 1,000, and then the mix is 2,500. And normally your liquor and beer expense is far more than the mix and other bar purchases. So I'm just wondering if there's an explanation for that.
So I would suspect that because we do have licenses for the bars. So when we do purchase bars, or alcohol, I'm sorry, for the bar, we do purchase it and then we're able to keep some stock on hand. And so we did keep stock. We tried to return whatever we could. And so there may have been some returns applied to this, but also then your mix and your ice and your cups and things that you can't return are going to be higher within this line item. So you'll see that you would see that this is higher and that's a little bit lower just because of those reasons. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Sue. Sorry, Sue.
No, that's fine. I just know that you can't see all of the attendees. So I just mentioned that I was on. So I just concur with the assumption that the treasurer is making as it pertains to the reallocation, the allocation of their time. If you look at page 41, Parks and Rec, the salaries were budgeted at 54. The actual was only 28. And then even we do have some staff that were helping out as well at the Cumberland Center. We had budgeted 18. There was only 12. That was actual. And the same with the railway station salaries. Sometimes when our staff go to do things there, it's to be reallocated there. We had budgeted 21 and only used 87. So I think if you were to take those parks salary budgets, I think I would concur with the treasurer's analysis on that and agree that the 148 should satisfy the needs.
Okay, so there'll be a careful look at how that's done as we proceed through 2022 to ensure it's allocated to the right account.
Yes. So
is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Yes. So we did have a pre-budget meeting with the staff before going in here, and those discussions did take place with the supervisors that we need to make sure our budget lines stay within our budget lines, and that so it's important for all of the part-time staff to ensure that their timesheets are coded appropriately.
Okay, thank you. Amanda, I remembered what it was I was going to ask about. So you've put together 3 lines into one line, which is this building maintenance line, and you've got $40,000 in there. Will we be addressing many of the issues that came up in the building condition assessment that were things that our staff could repair, replace, or complete? Was that what we're looking to do, to start that process with 40,000?
Yes, so there are regular building maintenance costs like tools that they may require and light bulbs and things that you don't normally think about on a regular day. So the 40,000, when you think of the size of the building, it's not really a lot of money to address some of these building condition assessment items. So the direction was to staff there that we do have a very large capital project that is being proposed that will hopefully take place this year. And the focus needs to be to make sure that we stay within those line items. We do know that there are a lot of things that need to be addressed within the facility, but the main focus this year is the floor, the ice surface. And that's where we need to make sure that we stay within these budgeted lines. And then in future years, we will address some of those other matters. So within this building maintenance budget, it's their job to come up with a work plan for the operations manager to approve and make sure that they are starting to tick off some of those boxes from the building condition assessments, with the understanding that we are not going to get a lot of those very poor items cleared this year, because our focus is, again, the very large capital project.
Okay, thank you. But I'm pleased to hear that they're looking at planning going forward, because
Yes.
some of the items were simple things like painting,
Yes.
repainting something, weather stripping. So
Mhm.
again, any of those where we can, certainly weather stripping, we might actually save a little bit on energy. Those things, it's great to see that there is some money there in case they
Yep.
can get those jobs done. But no, totally understand the budget is strained for this facility this year.
Yes. So
Any- Go
sorry.
ahead.
So last year's actuals, I believe we had put in additional 20,000 into the building maintenance for, some of those extra items. And so we just continued that this year. So they should be able to do quite a bit of additional work with the understanding there is a lot of additional work in other facilities too.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything further on the operating budget for the Paul J. Yakubuski Community Center? Don't see any hands. Did you want to move to the capital?
Sure. Okay. So the capital line for the Paul J. Yakubuski Community Center. So I will note that we did receive a grant for dehumidifiers for the arena, and the actual was $91,584 at the end of 2021. I do believe we did spend the whole $100,000, and I just have to look for that last $9,000 that I believe it was posted somewhere in 2022. So I'll just have to pull that out. Okay, so I'm going to go to this LED signage. We've budgeted 100,000. We know that rotating sign at the arena is no longer operable. We keep sinking funds into it and we just can't make it work. So we have received some quotes for signage. We had budgeted in 2021. We did not end up spending it. So we're just carrying that forward to 2022. If Hannah, can you speak on what your plan is for these LED signage? Because I think it's really great.
For sure. So the sign, we've chatted about it already, but it will be a double-sided sign. After discussions with the MTO, it's going to be just slightly back from where it is now, where those 3 pines are. The screens themselves look like it's going to be around 30,000. The structure probably about 10. So that 100 is like a very large number. I don't think we'll hit that, but we do still need to think about getting hydro there. We will need some kind of internet connection to be able to get the messages from the computer to the sign. So there are those things to think about as well. So it's good to have that padding. But yeah, that's what we're looking at for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have the very large project. So we have the ice surface replacement. So we budgeted $1.3 million with the understanding that this might come in a little bit slightly higher. So the idea is that we would draw 600,000 from landfill rehabilitation reserve, 400,000 from the leachate collection reserve, and 400,000 from the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center reserve to offset this cost. So once we do that, we will have a commitment to replace the landfill rehabilitation reserve and the leachate collection reserve over a 10-year period. So you would have seen that in our reserve page for the waste disposal page the day prior. So $60,000 and $40,000 every year for the next 10 years, because we do owe that back to that department. It's very important. Those monies were put there for an intended purpose, and we need to make sure that we can give back. So by doing this, it allows us to save money on rather than borrowing. We don't pay that in those interest amounts. We're borrowing from ourselves, money that we've already went to the taxpayer for. So it helps us to offset any additional costs. Again, when we do have either a super recommendation in the future, once we get those construction tenders back, or a bylaw, we will need to replace the money plus annual interest that would have accumulated for those years that those reserves would be missing out of because we've taken that money out. So that is the plan. We do have additional funds within the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center if this project does go over, so cost overruns, or if the tenders come back, slightly higher. We don't know. This is a new project for us. We don't know what it's going to look like. We are still in COVID times. We don't know how the inflation will be affecting costs to do this project. So there is a plan. There's money in unallocated reserve, and there is money in the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center reserve. So staff feels very confident that we will be able to finance this project so that we can then move forward and make sure that we have a facility that works for us and for our community groups. And then we have also in our reserves, we have applied $142,500 to the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center Reserve and $25,000 for equipment for future ice resurfacer. And then we will bring down the reserves, the application to reserves for the upcoming years. As you know, we have increased the reserves for the past couple of years, knowing that this project needs to take place. So we'll be able to reduce that there and then apply the additional 100,000 that we have been doing to pay back those funds in the other departments. Do I have any questions from council on those two projects?
Okay. I'm not, wait, Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. Amanda, and the question actually is to, if we could direct it to Hannah regarding the LED sign. I think it sounds like a wonderful investment. My question is, will there be some sort of a maintenance that we're going to require, and should we have a certain amount of funds sitting to look after that and the upkeep of that particular sign?
So we will have regular hydro costs, like we do at the rotating sign. An additional cost that we'll take on with this one is some kind of internet connection to the sign, whether that's annual. We're still kind of looking at different options to make that work. So I'm not sure what the number is going to be there, but that's definitely something that's, yeah, on my mind and for sure will be included in the future, like with budgeting and stuff like that. So hopefully the hydro will be lower. So there's something to think of there. Hopefully we can kind of make that work and we won't be spending much more than we do now.
So
Okay.
if
Do you have some sort of figure in mind, a ballpark?
No.
For the internet connection, not yet. There's a number of different options, whether we can try, just for example, we could try to buy a device that we can call to the internet down at the arena, or we're just buying a separate kind of modem that has, a 5G, just like a cell phone, basically, like it has its own thing. And we pay a monthly plan to whoever it is. So there's a lot of different options. So I haven't gotten that far in the planning yet to know. I don't have a number for you yet, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Okay.
if I could just make a comment. So we have been budgeting annually for ice plant and compressor quite substantially every year because we don't know what would happen if everything went down. So once we complete this project, the assumption is that we will be safe enough to bring the costs down for this, we've budgeted 15,000 and then 10,000 this year. So there will be savings within the operating budget for us to be able to redirect these funds to new costs, such as the LED signage upkeep or other, building maintenance costs that may come up in the future.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Amanda, I think that's probably going to be great to be going to the LED sign. We should see a reduction in hydro if we're not actually physically spinning something.
Exactly.
Right. So, LED is very cost effective. So hopefully this will end up being a very great investment for us, plus the opportunity to use the sign to inform the community about specific events, or if there's an emergency, it could be used, and potentially also to look at renting opportunities for our businesses to have some advertising as a part of the sign. So it does look like something that can end up being revenue neutral or possibly make us some money. So
Yes, Mayor Love.
Sue, yes, sorry.
No, that's
Sue,
okay.
I keep losing you.
That's okay. And I just wanted to, you brought up what I was going to suggest, that it had been discussed about eventually it becoming a revenue neutral, that you can sell, some advertising when there isn't a essential message. But more so just for council's awareness, the amount of money that we've spent in the last 2 years just maintaining the sign, and those costs are in that building maintenance. So we'll be saving on that. And we do continue to pay hydro for the sign that's not, working. So I think it will end up being a saving more than a cost, I believe.
Right. Okay, well, go ahead,
Sorry,
Amanda.
on the topic of the LED signage, it will be good to see where we come out, because the sign that Hannah has planned for the Highway 6, people coming off of Highway 60 and going through the park and coming out of the park and going back to Highway 60, that's great, but it doesn't address all of the visitors from Highway 62. So depending on what the final costs are, maybe it's something that council would like to consider in the future, signage here on our municipal building as people are coming into town to see it this way, or wherever it might be. Like it's just an idea that Hannah had discussed or had brought up, or but I think it's a good idea as well, so that we have that communication on both ends of town.
Exactly. Anything further on the capital projects at the arena? Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, the only last point I want to make is that I think both of these major projects, the sign and the ice surface replacement, will lead to some savings in energy, in maintenance, and as we, a number of different things. So they should actually help us with our operating budget over the next few years. And I'd like to add, I think the sign will be a great investment. I think it, from what I've seen, the design of it, it will be very attractive and really add to the look of the community. So they're both very, very worthwhile projects, and they'll add a lot to our community.
Great. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I think just on the ice resurfacing, council does expect that this project should be able to come in for the budgeted amount. So, while we could draw funds from other areas, as Amanda identified, we are looking forward to it coming in for the budgeted amount. I can't emphasize that enough. All right, Amanda, shall we carry on?
Yes, please. So we were moving to page 37 of 55 of your agenda package. That brings us to the Cumberland Community Center budget. So 2021, we budgeted 18. The actual was 12,805. So we just continued with the 18 for 2022. We are seeing some increased rentals at the facility. That's great. That's what we want to see. Some events for the community. So we're really excited that things are starting up again. Insurance again, it's going up. So we have increased that slightly over 2021 actuals. Hydro was budgeted at 32. We spent 16. So we just brought it up a little bit over to 2,800 for 2022. And that's as a result of the facility not being used. Okay, let's go to building maintenance. We budgeted 5,250, spent 6,500 at the Cumberland Community Center. So we just increased that by up to $8,000 because we know that there's some areas that might need to be addressed additionally. And of course, inflation will increase your regular items that need to be purchased. Telephone, we budgeted 24, spent 4. So we brought that down to 1,500. And we will be, the idea is to look at internet service at the Cumberland Community Center. So that is a hopeful thing. We'll see how that goes. The heat is staying in line with budget, so we're happy about that. Same with the outdoor rink utilities, budgeted 25, spent 22, just kept in line with that 2,500. Okay. There were no significant events there, therefore there were no expenditures with liquor and beer purchases, mix and other bar purchases, bar security and wages. I'm going to go down to equipment purchase and other expense. So we budgeted 500 for kitchen design, spent nothing. Stairway treads, budgeted 1,000, again, spent nothing. So we do have a plan in the capital expenditure side for the Cumberland Community Center. And then we do have continued to put money into reserves for the Cumberland Community Center. So before we move on to the capital side, if council has any questions on the operating.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. I'm not seeing any hands up. I was just going to ask, when we buy supplies for the bar for the PJY, are we buying supplies for this facility as well, or are they bought separately?
They're bought separately. They're handled by a separate person, the facility, the person who oversees the facility at that facility.
Okay.
Yes, so it's totally separate.
So are cleaning supplies separate too?
Yes,
I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity to bulk buy for the needs of both facilities and get a better price on some of these things.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I'm wondering if it's something staff could look into.
Right. Sure. Hillary's listening. So Hillary, if you could just jot that down for discussions with staff. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're headed into capital next, and I got a note that I will bring up at that point. Anything else on operating? I'm looking for hands. I don't see any. Okay, Amanda, take us into the capital for this facility.
Okay. Okay. So we have budgeted for 25,000 for this year. building assessment requirements. So again, the staff within the facilities and recreation department have looked at the building condition assessments, identified or highlighted anything that came in as very poor to poor, and have come up with a list of what the needs are. Again, the needs were quite higher than what we have budgeted. But again, the plan is to tackle things year by year, slowly address some items. So there is a plan to address the filtration system, the stairs, again, that were not, the treads that were not done last year, some lighting, some floor issues up and downstairs, and electrical that needs to be addressed, and the bar. We've also budgeted $8,000 for the outdoor rink buildings, so fans and heater for the Zamboni area. There was quite a bit of discussion between the operations supervisor and the facilities supervisor, so they're going to make a plan on what is the best approach for the Zamboni area for heaters in that region. Bar rebuild in 2021, we budgeted 5, we spent 0. And then fence line replacement budgeted 10, spent 0. So the plan was that we would just remove the fence. It is in very bad shape and in disrepair. And then we budgeted 6,000 for the Cumberland Community Center Reserve. Are there any questions for council on this capital?
Amanda, I'm wondering about the air conditioning unit that is going to have to be replaced. Are we looking at having someone look at whether or not we can take it off the roof? There was some discussion about it's on the roof and we're not sure why when we were discussing the building condition assessments, and should it have issues or break down, and I think it was listed as one of the items that will need to be replaced soon. I'm wondering if someone's going to look at that as part of either this year's or next year's capital amount to start addressing those building assessment things. And the other one would be the showers in the washrooms, that gets looked at, because it's not been identified on the building condition assessment, but it should be looked at.
Okay, so I was just given a quick list of a summary of some things to highlight for our building assessment requirements, but we will make sure that notes go to Hillary and to Alan to make sure priority is for those items, air conditioning, and for those showers in those areas.
Okay, and again, as long as it's being looked after either this year or next year, especially the air conditioning, so that we're ready if we did have to put a new system in that building. One of the greatest expenses was going to be to have to put it again up high. Yep. So if we could go, for whatever reason, if it could go on the ground, it would certainly be more cost effective to the municipality. So
absolutely,
I just don't want those two to be forgotten.
Sure, noted.
Any other questions on the capital for this facility? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, then we'll move forward.
Okay, that brings us to 3839. Okay, railway station. Okay, so that brings us to page 39 of 55. That's the Parks and Recreation Railway Station budget. So salaries. Oh, Councillor Poplinski, did you have a question right now?
Yes, Amanda. I'm just wondering, Amanda, the column on the right to where it says 2022 budget, you have a total at the bottom of 180,740. That I just checked that because it looks like it's about 40,000.
Amanda, this is the item I noted to you. There was a hidden line. You've got it exposed now. So Councillor Poplinski, if you look directly at what's on screen, you'll see there's a hidden line that was missed in what was printed, but this is what makes the difference.
Okay, right. That's why.
Yes, my apologies.
I assumed there was something, but I wanted to bring it up before we start talking about it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're
Much
welcome.
appreciated. All right, so railway station salaries budgeted 21, spent 87. So we've reduced the salaries down to 10 because again, we need to come up with a summer strategy for the students, and again, those students are shared amongst the Parks and Recreation and then within the railway station. So we want to make sure that their salary lines are or their timesheets are appropriately coded, and make sure that we're keeping track of where they're actually working. We do try to apply for Canada Summer Jobs for these for the students at the visitors information center to offset these salary lines. We apply for a lot of students, but we're not always successful, and we don't always get exactly what we ask for, but we do get a significant portion of the salary lines covered, so we're grateful for that. Building maintenance expenses budgeted 5 in 2021, spent 3,500. So we just carry that $5,000 over. So that would be, you know, items that they might need, tools or cleaning supplies, and any additional items that they might need to work throughout the summer. We do have internet and telephone service there, so we just continued with the actuals for 2022 on that one. Hydro, again, sort of staying the same with 2021. Heat is a significant jump. If you can see 1,500 in 2021, 2021 actual is 2,600. So based on the current actuals for 2022, I've had to increase that by to $6,000. So Hannah went out and purchased a smart digital thermometer that she can control with her phone, and hopefully we'll be able to keep those costs more in line from what they have been in the past. Although there are people that are using that facility year round now, which we have not had in the past. So typically our heat line would be around the $1,500 mark. So if you know, there are visitors to that facility year round, we will be looking at $6,000 for heat year round. Okay, water and wastewater, that's just typical for our for using the washrooms at the visitors information center. So I'm going to bring this down. Message board replacement. So we've budgeted $2,000 for the message board replacement, and that's at visitor center sign that's outside of the building. 2021, we budgeted $1,000 for visitors map. We did not spend anything, and we did not budget anything. So the idea was just take an assessment of what the actual needs are for that facility, based on what the community development and recreation coordinators plans are for the future, and then we'll build on the budget for 2023. So before we go into capital expenditures and capital reserves, are there any questions from council on the operating portion of this budget?
Okay, any questions on operating? I don't see, oh wait, Councillor Wilmer.
Just a comment really, and that's on the heating, where we are at 6,000, and I think it was a very good investment to get the app for Hannah so she can control it, because I think a lot of what's happening is there are a number of meetings being held in there during the winter, and I think quite often they may forget to turn the heat back down when they leave, and so this way Hannah can keep an eye on it, and it should hopefully help us with keeping that under control. So I think it's a very wise investment.
So the thermostat is not programmable for this facility? Because I mean, typically, even if you bump heat up on a programmable thermostat, once it's past a certain point in time, it kicks in and puts it back to where your program says. So I'm just curious why we don't have a programmable thermostat in there. it may not be able to have one, but
Yeah, I'm
I know.
not sure of the technicalities of it myself, but I do know that basically the heat is being turned up and it's staying up. I
Mhm.
don't know if people are changing the program, whether it's the group or staff, but it is too high for a building that's barely used in the winter. So we have turned it back down, and then this will allow me to just check on it once in a while and make sure that it is staying low, around 10 degrees or so, because has been up far higher than that in the past. And
Wow.
it might be a discussion that we have in the fall, whether meetings need to take place there in the winter and we can shut the building down for the winter or whatever. But it'll be a discussion to hopefully save some more money, just with, propane costs a lot of money now. It's a draft fuel building and the temperature is too high. So it's kind of a mix of a number of different things going on there.
Right. Okay. No, I was just curious, Hannah, because I know in my own house, if I bump up the heat, when the next time frame is set for the programmable thermostat to change, it automatically takes over and puts it back down or puts it up, whatever it's supposed to do. But I'm good. Absolutely anything we can do to save some money and ensure that we've got the thermostat going down as it needs to be when no one's using the building. That's fantastic.
Yeah, this will be remote, which is a big thing. I don't have to go check on it. I can
Well,
just pick up.
that's important because
Mhm.
staff does need to be able to have a life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on operating for this building? I don't see any, so let's do our capital.
Okay. Okay, so we have placed $40,000 within the capital for building condition assessment matters. And there was a work plan. We've also budgeted $95,000 for siding. There have been discussions on whether this is a heritage building or not. We recognize that it needs to stay within the CN rail color. So the plan is to receive quotes for the replacement of siding. Staff's preferred choice would be a concrete siding that lasts, forever. A wood in that CN rail color with a wood grain. So when you look at it, it actually looks like wood, but it has a longer lifespan to it. So we've budgeted $95,000 for that. In addition, so taking into consideration these two amounts, $135,000 in total, we recognize that there are accessibility issues for the facility. So the ramp is steep, the wheelchair ramp is steep, and the doorway is too narrow in order to accommodate those with disabilities. So when we had our pre-budget meeting with staff, we did discuss that the carpet and the handrails and the lights and the stairs all need to be addressed, but maybe what we need to do is pool these amounts and look at the siding and what's behind that siding. If there is any insulation or see what the contractors feel need to be behind there. And when they're replacing the siding, have that doorway readjusted in order to accommodate those with disabilities so that they can access the building and do that ramp as well. So, so right now, this is how it's been budgeted to address building condition assessment needs. But again, we need to start looking at accessibility for our buildings for the 2025 deadline. So Hillary and his staff will be looking, trying to make that work first. That is the priority, the siding and accessibility. And if that is something that we can do within this $135,000 budget, then that's what the plan is for 2022. We've also continued to put $6,000 towards the railway station reserve and $10,000 towards recreational building replacement reserve. And that reserve is to be used within any recreational building. So we draw it if we need for, the railway station or what have you. I don't know, but it's there, so it's shared amongst themselves. It's not specific to any facility. Any comments or questions from council?
Okay, questions. Councillor Wilmer. Oh, you just muted yourself.
Right, I guess I wasn't muted before. Just wondering if these renovations have been shared with the station keepers, and have they had a chance to comment on what we're planning?
Okay.
So
Anyone?
I know
Go ahead.
previously they were quite hopeful that we would replace the siding. As for any sort of renovations for the structure, the door and the ramp, and then, you know, these other things, we have not. Our comment, what I would comment is, it is our building. It's our liability. We are responsible and accountable for that building. And therefore we need to make sure that if this is our building by 2025, we need to make sure that we can accommodate all of our visitors into our visitors center. So that is very important, and it's my hope that they would be look at this favorably for this building.
I'm sure they would, and I really wasn't concerned about the safety issues. And yes, I recognize it's our building, but they are a tenant. I just think more on the siding and the colors and that sort of thing, it would be worth at least consulting them before we go ahead and do it.
Okay, Councillor Schulist.
Yes, to you, Madam Mayor. I have just one question now that the siding will be coming off. How well is the building insulated? Because once you're taking off the old siding, that'll kind of expose the walls. Are they well insulated? I really don't know the condition. Because something to think about.
Yeah, I think we don't know. We don't know what's behind that siding. So it will be interesting to find out.
Yes, well, and that could be something then that we're addressing, you know, in the short term, because obviously you don't want to put new siding on and not insulate the building well.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess staff will have to assess that situation as it evolves and let council know where we're at with it, because we may not get to carpet and handrails this year. We may end up having to redirect these funds to insulating the building so that the siding can go on. Okay.
That's correct.
It wouldn't hurt. It would only help, I think, to run this past the station keepers, because you know, the last thing council wants to do is to get ourselves in a position where the people in the community that care deeply about the history are offended by a choice that's been made. So while it is our building, absolutely, it wouldn't hurt to sit down with them and go over what's being proposed and just identify if they have any concerns and whether or not those can be addressed while we look after ensuring that we're looking after our building at the same time. Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a point of interest here. We are going to basically renovate this whole building, make it into a modern building to appear to be historic. I think one of the biggest things that's going to happen in our community is people are going to certain people are going to say, well, this is a heritage building. To certify that as a heritage building, I think the cost would be absolutely, we couldn't handle it. I think to be able to retain probably a third of the original building and incorporate it into what we're trying to do would just be astronomical as far as expenses go. So I think that might be the only issue that will be brought up by local people is, why is this not going to be a heritage building? And we should be expecting that kind of pushback. So I think it's a great idea to renovate the whole thing, make sure it's a modern building that looks old, but it'll last forever that way. To go heritage in this, it would be, I think it'd be really expensive and beyond our capability. So I just thought I'd bring that up. that we can expect that pushback. Thank you.
Well, it's definitely been identified. It is not at this point designated as a heritage building. Sue.
Just wanted to add, just to remind council, the plan to reshingle that building was 2 years ago, pre-COVID, if not 3. And the committee was consulted as it pertained to the shingles of the water tower, as well as the exterior of that building at that time when the station keepers had just been created as a committee. So there was consultation as it pertained to color and, suggestions about the windows when we're doing the siding as well.
Councillor Wilmer.
I just wanted to thank the CEO for that, because that's all I was asking. Have they been consulted? And if they were, then that's great. That's all I was asking.
Well, and again, that's what we want to ensure. Hannah, was that Hannah? Or was it Amanda? Okay, sorry.
I do agree. We need, if people are using the facility, we need to let them know. And similar with the library, we do have plans to do some work at the library. So it's very important that we reach out to Karen and let her know that we have put additional funds for some work to be done to her facility. Yes, I agree, Councillor Wilmer, that we need to let them know that once the budget is passed, these are the plans, and we will be moving forward in 2022.
Okay. All right. Any further questions on the capital for the railway station building? Councillor Schulist.
Yes, true, Madam Mayor. I just want to put my 2 cents in here. Oh, we don't have to have somebody tell us that is a heritage building. It is a heritage building. We know that, but we don't have to designate, because that definitely will be a cost, because you got to put all these standards. If you're talking about a heritage and talking about the roof, the original had cedar shingles, I'm sure, back then, because they didn't have asphalt shingles and so on. So you're really slicing hair here. And if the siding and maintenance looks authentic, and we're going to be saving money in the long run, then that's all that matters. I know in the Wilno Heritage Park, some of our buildings right now have a tin roof that looks kind of like a cedar shingles, and nobody's really saying anything. It still looks rustic, but we're looking at how do we maintain all these buildings and still keep it so that it is heritage looking. But you can't take that designation away from the railway station just because you're using a different material on the outside. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
I think, Councillor Schulist, you bring up a very valid point. From the community's perspective, this is a heritage building. However, from the sort of Ontario heritage designation perspective, that hasn't been done. So our goal is obviously to preserve the building for our community and for our community's enjoyment of the heritage quality of the building, but at the same time to ensure that the building is here for future generations to enjoy. So we do need to consider the materials we use and go with materials that will be more durable, perhaps, than what would have originally been put on the building at the time it was constructed. So it is a kind of a bit of a give and take. I think our main concern is purely to ensure that the group that is currently occupying the building, who are dedicated to the heritage and culture of our community, are consulted, so that they understand what it is we're doing. And our goal is to preserve the building and its heritage as best we can for future generations, with that understanding that we don't have to go the full route of an official heritage designation. So I think you summed it up quite well. Is there anything further on that? Are we good at this point? I don't see anything else. I think we're good. Amanda, where are we going from here?
Okay, so that takes us to page 40 of 55, the Lakeshore tennis budget. So Lakeshore tennis salaries budgeted 85 in 2021. Actual was 11,098. So we've budgeted 12 for 2022. This salary line is a student that works at the facility, but also takes care of the park. So addresses the, you know, the birds' fecal matter on the lakeshore and on the paths, addresses any garbage that may be laying around. It helps to increase membership at the tennis facility at the and they also last year did sell some small incidental items, water, chips, and some things that, you know, when you go down to a park and it gets hot, you'd like to have a water. So we bring in a little bit of revenue there. I think it's a good it's a good idea to have that person there because you have a little bit of backup. We've installed a telephone down at that facility so that if, you know, there's an incident there, you know, the students have an opportunity to call whoever they may need to, whether it be the swim program or for the parks. So I think this is a good investment for our park, our Lakeshore Park, and our tennis club. And I would hope to continue that. We do again apply for funding under the Canada Summer Jobs grant, but again, Canada Summer Jobs will come back at us and say, okay, we will fund this project and this project and this project. So we don't always get everything that we ask for. So, but we are hopeful. Miscellaneous expenses. So we budgeted 1,000 and spent 671. So we just carried that to 750 for 2022. And that would be little cleanup items, garbage items that we might need. It goes to the Lakeshore tennis one, but I believe that we had to purchase an AC unit for that building structure so that it is usable for the students to be there. And it's a nice break for people if they need to get away out of the sun for a little bit. We do have the capital expenditure item, which is the tennis court maintenance crack filling. So we budgeted in 2021. It did not happen as a result of COVID. So we rebudgeted it again for 2022, and we continue to put in $1,000 into the capital reserve for that facility. Are there any questions from council on this Lakeshore tennis budget?
Okay, I don't see any questions on that one, Amanda.
Okay, so let's take us to our 3940. Just want to make sure I'm on the right page. 41. Okay. So we are on page 41 of 55 of our agenda package. The Parks and Recreation Parks budget. So this is the budget for all of the different parks within the facility that we identify. So park salaries, we budgeted 54 and we spent actual of 28,156. So this is sort of the catch-all of the different, the part-time students, the students that do the flower watering throughout the summer. So the Horticultural Society purchases the flowers, plants the flowers with the budget that we give them, and then we have our students go out and water those flowers throughout the year. So it's a significant investment by the municipality, but it makes our communities look nice. And so we just continued that throughout the year. Let me see, equipment rental from other, okay. We budgeted 15 and the expenditure was at 5422. I'm going to have to look at that because I know that we have some the UTV expenses and that should be a little bit higher, but we'll look at that. So again, I just carried that from 15 to 15.5 for 2022, just continue that throughout the year because there are significant park equipment uses, especially with the half tons that they use for grass cutting as well. Lakeshore Park expense, budgeted 8, spent 52. So we have some brushing that needs to take place along the property for the causeway and all along the shores at the Lakeshore Park, and then some deterrent for the waterfowl that are along that area. Kameneske Lake roadside park expense. There were no expenditures last year. So we need to do some poison ivy control and possibly brushing. Of significant note is that this agreement with the ministry will expire next year. So that will have to be a discussion later on with whether the township wishes to continue that. And that's the roadside park along Highway 62, just outside of town. Okay, Mayflower Park expense. Here we go. Okay, Mayflower Park expense, that's the park down in Cumberland. We have budgeted $5,000 for some play structure repairs, some pumping of washrooms. There was a request to install hydro at the facility, depending on costs and what that looks like. That's still up in the air. We do have drainage issues, and we need to refinish the building and do some brushing. The train and water tower expense is we need to paint the steam engine. There was an idea to purchase some nice white lights so that they can remain on year round. And then this budget also covers the water bill. Barry's Bay Wharf, we do have a capital item for the wharfs, the finker replacements at the docks. I'm not sure what those are called. We'll look at the capital page, but we did just carry $500 this year because in case there are unforeseen expenses, if we, have to purchase some patch or something for those areas. Cumberland Wharf, again, we budgeted 1,000 last year, spent 2,800, so we just continued that to 2,000. We did recently install the gazebo there, so there could be some expense items there that need, or a new picnic tables. So we continued with that. A mission house expense, we budgeted 4, spent 4. We've increased this to 1,000 for certain maintenance expenses that may occur for the 2022 budget year. Okay, Cumberland Museum craft cabin expense. We budgeted 3, spent 16. There has been a request from the facility. The stairs are difficult for the users, and therefore the people that visit the area certainly go away from that area to the back end. So we need to do some repairs at that facility, lights and air conditioning that needs to be addressed there. The Cumberland Seniors Center expense, we budgeted 56, spent 17. So we just carried that actual into this year. Mostly it's just hydro that occurs at that facility. Cumberland Rectory, we budgeted 6, spent 0. So we just carried that 6 into 2022. And I believe what that will be for future is some taxes on the property. The Wilno Rink, again, there has been no request to increase our grant allocation to the Wilno Rink Committee. So we just continued the 5,000 for 2022. Zerikowski Park, budgeted $475 last year, spent $497. So just increase that by $500, and that's just minor landscaping repairs that we do for that area. The trail expense, so we budgeted 10, spent 10, and that is typically our brushing along the rail beds that we do for the snowmobile and ATV clubs. Okay, so there was some discussion to start looking at our walking trails and start making a plan. So there's going to be a little bit of money there for that. There was a discussion that a new top and rail for the Heritage Park Bridge in Wilno needs to be addressed. And so the funds will come out of here, and then anything else, if there's any additional funds left after all of that, we will, if there's any brushing that needs to get done, we will use those funds. Materials and supplies, So just miscellaneous materials and supplies, tools, and matters that they need to do some of the work at the other facilities that may not fit within these specific line items. We put them here. So we budgeted 3,500 in 2021 and spent 64. So we just carried 5,000 into 2022. Okay. Parks equipment purchase, the Wadsworth Beach extension and change room, we budgeted 10,000 in 2021 and we spent 75. So we've budgeted 2,000 for washroom pumping, and then just some minor paint upkeep at the facility there. Sports equipment for rental, so we budgeted 2, spent 965.46. Again, that was also part of, I believe, a participation grant. So there's some here and some in the economic development as well. Park safety signage, we budgeted $1,000 for some miscellaneous signage that we need at all of our various parks facilities. We do have more parks than this, and they do not have their own specific line items, but we do have a plan to address those other parks within our capital expenditure. So if council has any questions for me on the operating before we move over to capital.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. On the Kaministkeg Lake Roadside Park expense, there should be an expense for a porta potty. We've had one there every year, so you might want to go on a hunt to find out where that got to for 2021. But I suspicion that's the main reason we have those funds in there.
Yep.
Also, the reason why the Cumberland Wharf budget is higher than the Barry's Bay Wharf, because there is also a porta potty there. I just noted that in looking at what we've got in front of us. Councillor Poplinski.
Thanks, Mary Love. First item is, I notice you've got the Mission House expense and also the Cumberland Rectory. Obviously, I know there's some, you mentioned taxes and so on, but because of the change in use of that particular facility, are we taking that into account?
My apologies, I don't know about the change in use of
It's
the
not
facility.
a significant amount of money, but I just wondered whether we were, missing something, because further down then I noticed I looked at the list and I didn't see anything for the Cumberland Rink, and every year we spend probably a couple $1,000 in maintenance on
That's
boards. And is it there someplace?
The Cumberland Rink is part of the Cumberland Community Center. There are line items specific for the Zamboni and the Cumberland Rink in there.
Okay, and the other one was the Crooked Slide Park. There last year, I remember we talked about having some trees and things cut, and I don't believe that it got done.
Okay.
So would that be just in maintenance?
So, okay, I'm just going to flip my screen here. So if you go to your parks capital budget, we do have $40,000 budgeted for parks maintenance. So we have recognized your Crooked Slide Park, Denison Park, Wadsworth Beach. We've noticed that the trees are dying there, Reeves Park and Water Tower Park. So there may be some significant costs to do some work there. So we did budget 40,000 capital to address any sort of matters that may need to be resolved until we then make a work plan for future years.
Thanks, Amanda.
No problem.
Okay. Any other questions on the operating for parks? Okay, I don't see any. Amanda, did you just want to take us through that capital?
Sure, let's just jump right to it. So let me just zoom. Okay. Okay. So in 2021, we budgeted 110 for playground repairs. We did not spend anything because of COVID. It was just not feasible to be able to purchase those items. And then again, it was recognized that there are drainage issues and there are other issues at those parks. So we felt it was important to just put those aside. So that money just returned back to the reserve. We have put in an $80,000 capital request for finger docks to refurbish in-house by staff for the Barry's Bay Wharf and the Cumberland Wharf. So the acknowledgement is that those need to be upgraded severely, and so staff will do their best with this 80,000 to try and fix those as soon as we're able to. And then again, we have that 40,000 for other parks maintenance as a result of the service delivery review. So we'll try to address a lot of those items again in Crooked Slide, Denison, Wadsworth, Reeves, the Water Tower Park as best as we can, and then come up with work plans for future years to make sure that we have a working parks program with plans every year of maintaining our parks. Capital reserves, we've put 5,000 to Parks and Playground Reserve, and then 10,000 for Equipment Reserve, with the assumption that eventually we might need to purchase a stage or possibly redo a gazebo or something nice. But again, we want to make sure that we address these matters in our any sort of master plan. So do I have any other questions from council on the capital budget for parks? Kim, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I muted myself to cough and take a drink. I don't see any further questions on that, Amanda. So
okay,
we have completed a pass of the budget for taxation here.
Yes, so that completes our budget for the general budget, which draws from municipal taxation.
Okay. So what do we want to do at this point? Do we want to go back and discuss that budget, or do a motion to recommend that budget be approved?
So I would, if I could, if council has any other concerns with our general municipal budget, which draws from taxation, I would propose, we have made those amendments to the fire department. So we've removed from equipment purchase and started an equipment training, or a volunteer training reserve. So I am requesting that council approve a 2.2% tax rate increase to support this general municipal budget.
Okay, so is that the recommendation? Could I get the recommendation read? I think that's basically it, but someone must have it. Sue has it.
Sorry, Amanda, did you also want that to include, council did go over, you had itemized what construction projects would be done, and
Sure.
that identified that would come from the former gas tax, which is now known as OSIF. I would read a recommendation that you drafted this morning for that portion, if you'd like.
Yes, if we could.
That council approved the 2022 draft municipal budget as amended with a tax levy increase of 2.2%, and that 256,466.40 received from the Canada Building Fund, formerly gas tax, and the 373,657 received from OSIF be directed to the following construction projects: Walowski Drive Construction Project, Island Lane Project, Dam Lake Stan Olszewski Roads Project, and the gravel resurfacing of various roads project for 2022.
Okay, could I get a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Wilmers, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay. So Amanda, I guess let's do, is curbside pickup next?
Yes. Are we good to go, or does anyone
We're
need a
good.
bathroom break? Okay.
Oh, now there's a plan. Okay. Could we take 5? Amanda, you're a genius. Could we take 5 to, where are we at in time wise? Could we take until 11:40 for a bathroom break? Someone so move. Moved by Counselor Wilmer, seconded by Counselor Poplinski. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, let's come back at 11:40. Gives us a few minutes.
Gwen, if you can start my video, please.
Okay, we're nearly all back. I'm just waiting on Councillor Poplinski, who's coming in now. There we go. So everybody's back. I'm going to call the meeting back to order and turn it over to Amanda to take us through curbside pickup.
Okay, so the 2022 curbside pickup area rate budget. So this is a budget where we see all the revenues and all the expenditures related to curbside pickup. We take those, balance them out, and come up with an area rate to charge once a year on the tax bill of the residents that receive curbside pickup, and those residents only. So for what they use is what they are charged, and this is an area rate that appears on the tax bill separate from your tax levy. All right, 2021 budget for the area rate billing. We had budgeted 198,963, received 199,900, so quite close. Based on the needs of this year, we're budgeting 201,332.81. We will be drawing $225,000 out of curbside equipment reserve for capital expenditure, and $75,000 from the transportation equipment reserve for capital. We will also be transferring $11,427.19 from a surplus account of the curbside pickup. So that is the revenues that will then offset our expenditures for the year. The curbside pickup salaries, 2021 we budgeted 88,756, and the expenditure was 83,961. And so we just continued that salary expenditure into 2022 of 88,756. The curbside administration expense, we budgeted 21, spent 21, and continue with that. And that is just transfers of administration expenses from the general budget to curbside pickup. Then we're going to go down here to curbside equipment rental from other departments. And so all of the equipment that we purchase falls under public works or transportation. So what we do is when they use the garbage trucks or the curbside trucks or any other equipment, then we just charge that time back to this budget. And so we budgeted 62.8, and what we saw in actual expense was 61,103. So we continued that in 2022. The tipping fees, we budgeted 15 and the actuals was 1284. So we continued with 15. The materials and supplies in 2021, we budgeted 25 and the actuals was 1,700. So we just continued that 2,500 into 2022. We do have a capital expenditure we budgeted for in 2021. Unforeseen circumstances, chip shortages and COVID-19 did not allow us to be able to have that unit built. We do need a new curbside pickup piece of equipment. And again, because materials are increasing, the cost of materials increasing, we have increased that capital expenditure to 300,000. And then for capital reserves, we budgeted 30,000 in 2021, and we will continue that in 2022. So that brings us to the rate. So as a result of these expenses and forecasted revenues, we are proposing no increase in the curbside area rate. Therefore, it would remain at the residential rate of 168.5, and then all of the other rates, commercial, industrial, would then multiply off of that residential charge. This would mean a $3.17 cost of pickup per residential property. Are there any questions from council on your curbside pickup area rate budget?
Okay, anyone with any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Amanda, you when you were talking about the purchase of a new garbage truck, it's being funded from two reserves. It was curbside. It's the transfer station reserve is the other one?
Yes, it is, because
Okay.
that unit would be shared.
So it's been allocated based on usage, is that not right?
That is correct. A percentage of the usage, yes.
Okay. Now, the only other thing I noticed was there seems to be, and I don't remember us doing this, but there seems to be a small IC&I single stream charge that's less than the residential charge.
Yes.
Is that something new that's proposed?
So we had our curbside or waste site ad hoc committee last summer. There were discussions there were one or two businesses that received curbside pickup, but didn't fall or barely paid any sort of curbside area rate because they only received pickup intermittently for a single stream of waste that they produce, whether it be organics or recycling material. And at the meetings of previous councils, many terms of councils before, it was agreed that a set fee would be the reasonable fee for those businesses. So fast forward 15 years, so we've identified that we need to appropriately design a curbside area rate for single stream commercial businesses. And therefore, the ad hoc committee recommended a 50% of the small IC&I for any business that is in the single stream category. It was proposed to council, and the recommendation was approved. And so this is a new charge that will be appearing on a couple of businesses' tax bills in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you for the explanation. I had forgotten the details, and as it is something new, it's nice to give that explanation to the public so they understand what it is. Mm-hmm. Is there any further questions on this budget? Okay, I don't see any. I guess let's take us through transfer stations then.
Right, so let's go ahead to transfer station. Okay. Let me just zoom my page here. All right. Again, so similar to the curbside budget, this is for transfer station. This is the transfer station area rate budget. This is an area rate. It is a separate fee that will appear on the user's tax bill once a year, apart from your tax levy. This is for users of the transfer station only So the expenses for the transfer station are then applied only to those users and not anyone in the curbside pickup catchment. So 2021 transfer station area rate billing, we had proposed 92,841 for revenues, and the actuals was 92,203. We are budgeting 93,760.44 for 2022. We are looking at transferring 6,000 from the transfer station equipment reserve. We do have some capital items within there. And then we also are proposing, should funding become available to us in the Canada Summer Jobs Grant, $3,000 in revenues from the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. Within the expenditures, so we budgeted 48,525 in 2021. Our actuals was 62,586. 2022, we're proposing 65,000 in salaries. The reason for this is we have seen high usage at our transfer stations in the summer times, and we need to recognize that the staff those stations can no longer operate with one person. So we do try to hire part-time summer staff to help out in those busy times, so that those staff are not working full-time hours or beyond full-time hours, and that they do get to enjoy their summer as well. Okay, so let's go down. So just on top of that as well, we are proposing that this remains. It is a significant jump, but we need to recognize that the users of the transfer station are growing within our community. Okay, transfer station utilities. So this would be any sort of additional costs like propane for those facilities. Equipment rental from other departments again. So any items that are used or from the roads department get billed back to the transfer station at payroll time based on time used. Recycling tipping fees. This is like Ottawa Valley Waste, the tipping fees, when we take our waste over to them. We budgeted 13 in 2021 and the actual was 8,800. And we are very confident that that's the actual number. So we've just increased it slightly to 9,000 for 2022. Materials and supplies, we budgeted 1,100 and only spent 103. So we've brought that down to 600 for the year. We do have a surplus deficit transfer to offset. So we have funds in a surplus account for the transfer station. So we're proposing a transfer to offset the expenses of $11,789.56. We have a $6,000 capital expenditure, which is we proposed putting in a generator with an electric start in Cumberland so that he can, the users there or the attendants there will have be able to have an air conditioning unit and other items during their work time. And then we're also proposing to purchase 2 bins at the Wilno Waste site, 2 additional bins, because just for some cushion of the times of when it's so busy and the bins get full, and then when those bins get picked up from Ottawa Valley Waste. So just to make sure that the bins don't overflow. And then additionally, we're proposing 16,700 be placed into reserves, 11,700 for equipment replacement and 5,000 for site requirements. So with that in mind, we are proposing a 1% increase from previous, or 38 cents in our charge, or the residential charge, which would be $38.76 for 2022, above from 38.38. If there are any questions from council on the transfer station area rate budget.
Okay, any questions on transfer stations? Okay, I don't see any, Amanda. Do we have a resolution, Sue, to adopt these two budgets then?
Yes, through the chair, I will read and the treasurer can affirm I've made a change. That council approved the 2022 draft curbside pickup area rate budget as presented with no increases to the 2021 applicable curbside pickup area rates.
Okay, we'll start. So are we doing them one at a time?
Amanda?
We can do them one at a time. They are different budgets, so I think that would be reasonable.
Okay, so this is the motion for the curbside pickup budget. Could I get a mover for it, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, how about the transfer station budget?
Yes, that council approved the 2022 draft transfer station area rates budget as presented with a 1% rate increase to the 2021 applicable transfer station area rates.
Okay, could I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Again, those were both carried unanimously. So, Amanda, I guess we're at water and wastewater.
Okay, let me just increase my screen here. All right. So we are looking at page 47 of 55 of your budget package, your agenda package for the 2022 water system budget. This is a budget that takes into account the revenues and expenses solely for the water system and comes up with a rate that then is applied to the utility billing or the water billing for the users on that system. Okay, so in 2022, we are proposing a $55,611 and 28-cent transfer from reserves to offset capital costs. In 2021, interest from investments, we proposed 1,700, and we're looking at a 1,700 actual interest from investments for the water system, and we'll just carry that into 2022 as well. Metered billing, the budget was $515,160, and the actual was $529,269.54. The proposed 2022 budget is the metered billing would be $529,740. In 2021, we had budgeted a surplus, a transfer from surplus in revenues to offset those expenditures of $70,641. The actual was $45,680. And then in 2022, we are proposing a $26,645 transfer from surplus. Late payment penalties, we had budgeted $2,600 in 2021. Actuals was $9,413.97. So we are forecasting $4,000 for 2022 for revenues. Miscellaneous revenues of $897 budgeted in 2021. Actuals was $1,327.29, and therefore we are proposing $1,000 in 2022. Miscellaneous revenues could be anything from reprints of bills or I'm not really sure. It's mostly like reprints of bills or any additional items that outside of anything here that we typically see within our budget. Transfer from the general fund is $1,350 proposed. This is from fire for use of water from the hydrants, and we're just going to continue that in 2022. That is the revenue side. The water system salaries for 2021, we budgeted $13,500. The actual was $12,896. So we're just going to continue those salaries for 2022 to $13,500. Okay, I'm just going to move down the line. Computer supplies and expenses. We had budgeted $1275. The actual was $2954. As a result of our new water meter reading software, there are maintenance costs for the software. So that is what has increased that. And so we've just increased that budget to $3,000. Miscellaneous expenses, we budgeted $1, we spent $4,100. So we'll just, those were really unintended expenditures. So we'll just continue the $1,000 in 2022. Utilities, we budgeted $47,600 and the actual was $45,000. So we're just going to continue $47,600 into 2022. Equipment rental, again, very rare if we do any sort of work. The public works for the water or wastewater systems. And again, it's similar to payroll. So if they do some work when they're in the half tons, and we just bill the time back to those departments. Meter installation expense, we budgeted $5,000, the actual was $805. So we budgeted $1,000 in 2022. We do charge those costs back to when a meter is installed, when it's a new house or a new business or whatnot. So it's revenue neutral. The operation contract for Aqua budgeted $275,983, came in at $273,889.49. Aqua is proposing a budget of $267,152.28. The Aqua repair requests budgeted 18, spent 2280, and the repair requests came in at 26,645 for 2022. These are priority 2 items. So at the beginning of the year, Aqua will provide staff with a spreadsheet of items that they identify that need to be addressed, and what they propose the costs will be. And I believe on page 48 of 55, I've identified what those priority 2 items are for council. So the intent is that priority 1 is higher than priority 2. So Aqua staff knows that although the monies are budgeted, we need to ensure that priority 2 items sort of take a back burner, because we don't know if there are going to be any pumps or unforeseen costs that may come about, and we will then draw the money required to pay for those from these budgeted items, and then those priority 2 items will just have to remain unfunded and move into another year to be purchased. Payments in lieu budgeted 25. The expenditure was 5,087. So we budgeted 5, and that's taxes that we did not realize had not been realized in a previous year, and it came out in 2021. So it's likely that this will not be 2,500 this year, but we're going to continue that $5,000 for 2022. Frozen pipe expense, we budgeted 350. There was no frozen pipes in 2021. We continued the 350 in 2022. The OMIFO SIFA loan, that continues to 2035, I believe, is the scheduled date. And then we move down here, materials and supplies continuing from the 2021 budget. Transfers to reserves from investment income usually remains the same throughout the year. Capital expenditures, we budgeted 46,820 and we spent 31,898.16. We will be budgeting 68,404 for those items that have been identified by Aqua, and that is on your page 48 of 55. And the capital reserve, we're continuing at 70,000. So I am going to flip over to the water capital page. I just want to zoom in here because the capital is very important in the setting of the rate. So I think we need to discuss it all as one. So within these capital items are all the priority 1 items that Aqua has identified that needs to be taken care of in the current year. So they are saying $50,000 for standpipe and tower rehabilitation, 5202 for distribution parts, 5202 for electrical instrumentation and controls, 5,000 for high lift pumps and low lift pumps, backwash pump rebuilds. And then we have the continuation of our $3,000 rate setting and analysis and financial plan update. And we did that plan and we just sort of broke the cost up over a few years, which will end in 2024. And that plan helped to guide us, telling us that we need to invest in our capital and continue with a 2% rate area rate increase, and then within a few years the capital costs will come down and we'll be able to add more into reserves and then potentially bring down our area rate increase or not have an area rate increase in a few years. And then we have $70,000 going into our life cycle reserve. So with this budget, I am proposing a 2% rate increase per our financial analysis plan that was adopted 2 years ago, which would be a $4.86 per cubic meter for the use of water. The quarterly minimum of 15 cubic meters, that bill would be $72.90 per quarter. This means 9-cent increase per cubic meter or $1.35 for the quarterly minimum. Are there any questions from council?
Okay, council. So Amanda's presented you with the entire operating and capital budget for water. Any questions on any of those sections? Okay, I'm not seeing any. If there's no questions, Sue, then do you have a recommendation for this budget?
I do. That council approve the draft 2022 water system budget with a 2% rate increase, $4.86 per cubic meter.
Okay, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, Amanda, wastewater.
Just zoom my page. Okay. All right. Again, wastewater system budget. It's a separate area rate only for the users of the wastewater system. We come up with our expenditures for the year and then what are proposed revenues to come up with an area rate. Again, for only the users on the system. 2021, we had a transfer from reserves of 42,957. That was not realized. 65,000 we are budgeting for 2022. Okay, let's go down here. Interest from investments. budgeted 2,300. The actual will be around 2,300. Again, these our actual numbers are unaudited and therefore could change. Therefore, we're budgeting for 2292, again 2,300. It's not, you know, $2,300 on the penny. It will increase or decrease slightly, but we're usually around that mark. Metered billing, we budgeted 551.8 for 2021. The actual was 553,638.55. Based on the area rate that we were proposing, the metered billing will be 567,890. We are proposing a $21,120.74 transfer from the surplus fund to offset our expenditures. There will be a transfer of $24,358.02 for the 2021 budget. Ontario funding, $620.48. My apologies, I don't have a note in here for what that was for. It's a small amount. It might have been a small portion of a grant or something that we received. And that's why it's in that Ontario funding. Late payment penalties in 2021, we budgeted 4,500. The actual expenditure was 42, or actual revenue was 42,95.96. So we're just going to continue with 4,300 for our revenues for 2022. Miscellaneous revenues for the wastewater system was $95,000. This was in settlement of the wastewater litigation. We received $95,000 in the settlement of that matter. In 2021, we received $300 in plumbing permits. We're not budgeting anything because the amount is typically small for plumbing permits within the wastewater system revenues. Wastewater expenditures for salaries, we budgeted 13,200. The actual was 13,669. And just to be on the safe side, we're going to continue with the 13,200 for 2022. I'm just going to move down my page here. Computer supplies and expenses again. So the 1275 for 2021, that's a transfer from the general admin budget for the use of computers and other office supplies. It did increase in 2021 again because of the software maintenance requirement for the new Neptune technology software program that we purchased. So we have put that to 3,000 for 2022. Utilities, we budgeted 70. The actual was 88,094.51. So we're going to increase that to $90,000. Aqua operation contract budgeted 311,016. The actual was 308,449.43. That will be increasing to 340,942.74 because of some labor increases in the operation contract. Repair contingency budgeted 18. The actual was 48,1739. And those were priority 1 items that Aqua had identified on their schedule of items that needed to be addressed. 2022, we're budgeting $25,322. Within your agenda package, I've identified what some of those priority 1 items are. So pumping station repairs, chemical feed system upgrades, station cleaning and power flushing, and UV disinfection system. Priority 1 items will take precedent over anything in the priority 2 category. Again, not necessarily that this money will be spent, as you can see in 2021. It was not, but the money is there and available should staff require it. If it's not used, then the money goes back. If the budget can balance itself, then the money will go back into reserves. Payments in lieu, 4,500 in 2021. Again, the actuals were doubled in 2021. So we're just going to continue with the 4,500 in 2022. And that would be taxes on our facilities pumping stations. And we'll be able to write some of those costs off once we receive them. The MEF and OCFA loan, again, we just continue it year into 2035. Wastewater system Aqua plant upgrade repairs. So there was an actual expenditure in 2021 of $40,000. Excuse me, I have to take a drink. My apologies. This 40,000 is as a result of the litigation that was settled. And we did have a $40,000 expenditure that we had to send out. Materials and supplies, we budgeted 1,000. We did not spend anything. And so we're just going to continue that $1,000 into 2022. Transfer to reserves for investment income. So in and out from the revenues and the expenditures. 2,300, and we're just going to carry that into 2022 again. Capital expenditures for 2021 was 65,000. Budgeted, spent 47,596. We had some pump failures that were significant and needed to be replaced immediately, and therefore some of those priority items did not get addressed, and will be continue into 2022 with a budget of $66,102. And then we are going to place $62,584 into capital reserves. So I'm just going to switch over to the capital sheet so we can look at some of those items. Excuse me while I zoom in. So as we've identified before that, although we budget for some of these priority 2 items, again, we need to ensure that if there are some failures that need to be addressed immediately that were not budgeted for, then Aqua staff realize that these priority 2 items will not take place in the current year, and we need to use those funds to offset emergency repair items. So they're requesting 35,000 for SBR platforms, 15,000 for infiltration and inflow study assessment, and 16,102 for process monitoring, electrical instrumentation controls, equipment repairs, lab supplies, collection system parts and tools. So 15,000 was budgeted. For priority 2 items on schedule, 10,892.88 was spent in 2021. $35,000 was budgeted for this SBR platform, but again, because we had some significant pump repairs, that did not get spent. And as you can see, we had pumping station pump replacements realized in 2021 for $36,703.92. And then our reserves, $62,584 will go into our wastewater system life cycle reserve. With that, keeping in mind of our financial and rate setting analysis study that we approved 2 years ago, we are proposing a 2% increase on the 2021 rate, which would bring our rate to $5.21 per cubic meter, or a quarterly minimum of 15 cubic meters to $78.15. That would mean 10 cents increase per cubic meter, or $1.50 for the quarterly bill minimum of 15 cubic meters. Are there any questions from council on the wastewater system budget?
Okay, anyone with any questions on wastewater? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Sue, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, that council approved the draft 2022 water system budget with, apologies, that council approved the draft 2022 wastewater system budget with a 2% rate increase at $5.21 per cubic meter.
Okay, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by, sorry, Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? Y'all moved on me. Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, and that's carried unanimously. So, all right, so we've gone through everything, Amanda.
Done.
Good job.
We did
Excellent.
it. We did it.
Excellent. And council can see the last pages in your package are the reserve pages, and they basically implement all the changes that Amanda has identified throughout the budget.
Yes.
All right. So thank you, Amanda. That was an excellent job. A lot of work and certainly a very good explanation. Sue?
If I may, Mayor Love, on behalf of staff and myself, I would like to thank the treasurer as well as all staff that were part of the discussions for the preliminary discussions and inclusion of all considerations that form the content of the 2022 budget you've just reviewed. It is my observation that even though you're receiving the budget in March 2022 for consideration and approval, I want to affirm that the discussions and gathering of information started late October 2021. And I would be remiss to not again thank council and all staff for their patience and assistance throughout 2021 as we worked through so many reviews, the software changes, and of course, COVID. So thank you to council, all of staff, and great job, Amanda.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. I want to extend thanks to Amanda. Good job, well done, and to staff for all the hard work. It's a tedious process, but it's a necessary one, and I'm really glad to see the end of it. But I think we've achieved a lot, and looking back over the years, how sometimes it was extremely difficult, and I think we're on the right track. And once again, thanks to all of you.
Okay, thank you. So next steps, Amanda, will be that the budgets that we're basically recommending to council will come as bylaw to council and committee in the regular council portion of that meeting on, what is it, April 5th, I think. Sorry, I'm just grabbing my calendar. What day is it? April 5th. Okay, so council, that's what you'll see at that point. Now, Amanda, will you have the audit? Will it be done by then? That's an awfully short timeline.
No, no,
Okay.
It won't be done. But I just want to point out that the actuals are a snapshot in time, similar to every year's budget, and we do our best to get the actual figures out of there. So for the into those budgets. So for the public's purpose, it's a good reference, but the key is the financial statements where everything is summarized by departments, what our expenditures and what our revenues are, our net revenues and capital items. This is just a way to guide us, similar to, our goal is to have our budgets out earlier. Many municipalities have their budgets out in December. So if you take that into consideration, you can't have your actuals be audited by December if you're doing your budget in December. So we do try to get as much of the information accurately as possible. And when we do the budget, we do sift through those accounts to make sure some things do get missed, or or there's just so many numbers that we can't remember everything, and we try to make our notes for ourselves so that we can explain everything to council. So again, when we put in the budget document 2021 actuals, those are unaudited numbers, and so for those following closely, I would recommend that you wait for the financial statements to be released for the final numbers for the municipality.
Okay, thank you. So that's a very clear explanation of exactly what we're working with. And it is super important that we ensure that we get our budget done as soon as possible so that projects that are proposed for 2022 can get out and be tendered and we can get better pricing. But Amanda, excellent job. Really, thank you so much. You took us through all the material, explained it very well. And I think council is really, really pleased with this last budget of this term. So that kudos to you. Absolutely. And to all the staff that contributed as well, but kudos to the treasurer for pulling it all together.
Well, and thank you to council for asking all the questions that need to be asked. You know, sometimes we don't like to hear the questions, but they're necessary. They're absolutely necessary in order for us to operate. So thank you.
Okay,
to that point, Mayor Love, I'd like to congratulate council as well. They've assisted us in, as we streamline all of the reports to council. We add at the beginning of each report or at the end of each report where it's coming from, projection as to what council wants to see next year, and then staff and the treasurer are tracking those and putting them right away into your upcoming budget. So that has made a big difference as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to know. I think it's working well. All right. So we've pretty much completed everything today, and I've got one last thing to do in the 5 minutes that were scheduled left. So we have our confirming bylaw. It's bylaw 2022-26. The confirming bylaw, it's the recommendation is that bylaw 2022-26, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Madawaska Valley at a council meeting of March 17th and 18th, 2022, be given first and second reading. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Bromwich, because his hand is up. All those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-26 be given third and final reading this 18th day of March 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. All those in favor? And that's carried. A motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulis. All those in favor?